Hi everyone, it's Lauren, the New Hampshire Stitcher. I am back with another episode of Flosstube. It has only been 3 weeks since my last Flosstube, which I think might be a record for me, at least since in the middle of the year I had a whip parade and then an episode shortly after, but never have I made it back for a regular update in less than a month, so I'm pretty proud of myself there. And I have actually a pretty good amount to show you today. I wanted to get back here before we get into the full swing of the holiday season with Thanksgiving coming up in a couple of weeks already, 3 weeks, and eventually Christmas is what I celebrate, so that'll be coming before we know it. And I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about what I've done for fall, wrapping up fall stitching, and then actually getting into some Christmas stitching. So every video I say I'm not much of a Christmas stitcher, but apparently it's like a Beetlejuice situation where if I say it enough times, it shows up in front of me. So I guess I'm going to be stitching Christmas this year. So I have fully finished objects, finishes. I don't have any whips, just starts. I have 4 starts, and then some things that I've purchased throughout the month. Knitting at the end. I have like a pretty good amount of knitting. I've been doing a lot of that, especially in the past week. So we can jump right in and we'll start with fully finished objects. So the first thing that I have is this pillow, which is the Blue Flower Seasons of the Heart Autumn. So as I've mentioned before, I'm doing this full series, and With Thy Needle and Thread also has the Seasons of the Heart series. I'm also doing that, and I'll be showing you another one of those in a second. But this is the Blue Flower series. This is Autumn. I finished the stitching on this a while ago, but hadn't done the full finishing. So I showed, I think, my fabrics in the last video, and this is what I did. I did a border of this white around the edges, and then I added a second border of these mushrooms, and then my backing is this sort of got like miniature hearts on it almost, very faint pattern. I stuffed it with polyfill and walnut shells, and yeah, I love it. I stitched this one on, I think it was 40 count Cecil by Seraphim with the called for DMC. And I'm now done with 2 of the Blue Flower Seasons of the Heart. I've done spring and fall. So you'll see in my Christmas planning, hopes and dreams, that I might do the winter one soon. Then my other finish, fully finished object, is another Seasons of the Heart, but this one is With Thy Needle and Thread. And this is her winter one. So I finished this winter stitching back in January, I believe. Had never fully finished it. And what I did with this one is just a simple pillow finish with some Rifle Paper Company fabric, just like a tan fabric on the back, and tan rickrack from Joanne Fabric on the edges. And I'm doing the same finishing for all 4 of these. So I'm now done with 3 of them. I have done spring and summer. They are both fully finished the same way with this tan rickrack. And I believe I stitched this with all of the called for colors on 40 count Papyrus by Color and Cotton. That sounds right. Similarly, I'm finishing or planning to finish all of these the same with the 2-piece border. This border, I cannot take credit for thinking of it. This is how Janine had them fully finished and when they were originally in the Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine, and that's where I got the idea. So those are my 2 fully finished objects, and I did have 2 finishes, regular finishes this month, both of which were start and finishes. I feel like I'm missing a little bit of information here. So the first one that I started and finished, I don't have the chart, but that's okay because it's done. It is another Blue Flower chart, and it is this Magpie and the Moon. And I stitched this on 40 count Jack Frost by Seraphim. I picked up this piece of Seraphim at my local needle workshop, The World in Stitches, probably about a year ago. It's blowing out a little bit because, as usual, my lighting situation is not the best, but it is a very pale blue with a little bit of a gray tone to it. Super, super pretty. And the colors I used were from Stash, so it calls for some overdyes and DMC. I used all overdyes, and it was mostly Roxy Floss Co. Just pulled out where I thought they matched. If you're curious about what I used, I could probably go back and try to figure it out, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. I've been doing a little bit more color matching lately when I don't have threads, just because I'm at the point where I have a lot of thread, especially from Gentle Arts, Roxy Floss Co., obviously DMC, and so I am kind of getting to the point where most colors I'm able to get something comparable. So that was my first finish, and I haven't figured out what I want to do with that for a fully finished item yet. I've been contemplating putting it in like a round frame and just having it be a small framed object, like on my mantle, or I don't have a mantle, on my sideboard, or, you know, on like a random counter. And the other finished object I have, start and finish, is my second autumn salt box. So it doesn't matter totally that you can't see this very well, but you may recall from last time I had finished this one. Now I have finished the second one, which means that I'm done with autumn. So here's like the full thing. Ooh, I'm gonna probably have to go grab a board in a minute, but here's please. Okay, here are the finished autumn salt boxes. On the left side, we have the one I finished last time. On the right side, with a little wrinkle in it, we have the one I finished this time. I loved stitching both of them. I think the one that I just did was a little bit more fun. It had, you know, the sunflowers and the moon. That red and orange house was really fun. I believe the only changes I made to this were carried over from the first salt box. So overall, this is stitched on 40 count barley by Color and Cotton, and the changes I made to this salt box were instead of Weeks Dye Works Seagull, which is that blue, I used Weeks Dye Works Dolphin, and instead of Roasted Fig, I used Gentle Arts Cinnamon, I believe. So those salt boxes are now done, and I am excited to move on to the winter salt boxes. After really being stalled with these for months, I have like a new zest for doing them. So here are the winter ones. We have the red house with some Christmas trees and snowflakes, and then I'm really excited about, on the right side, the 3 little houses with the reindeer going over the top. So I probably won't start these until later in December. They feel like they could be kind of all winter to me, so I don't feel like I'm in a rush to do them by Christmas or by the end of the year or anything. I'll put that away later. But yeah, once those are done, I will have summer still to do because I just didn't get around to it this year. But I figure I'll do the summer ones maybe next spring, and then by summer of 2024, they should be done. Okay, those are my finishes and my fully finished items. And now let's just go through my starts because I have no other whips. I just kept starting things. So since my last video, the first thing that I did after that video was work on Magpie and the Moon, finished that, worked on the second salt box, finished that, and then began my Start-a-Palooza. I think I started 4 or 5 things within 4 or 5 days. So let's just go. I don't know if this is in order, but here they are. The first one is from this book, which is Blackbird Designs Winds of Autumn. I really like this book. I've done a bunch of the smalls in here already. Ideally, I would like to do the majority of the book. So what I started is the chart First Winds of Autumn, which is this huge crow and the little reddish orange house. And this is finished into a strawberry. I won't do that. I'll probably frame this one. I think it'll be a little bit too big for a pillow. I am stitching this on 40 count Fesby by Seraphim. It appears that I had a lot of hanging threads here. And this is where I got to. So not a huge amount. I think I worked on this for a day and a half, something like that. Got the vase on the top of the house started, got the house outlined, did this little bottom border piece and the surrounding area. So to give you context, I've been working all right here, and I started the pumpkin, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I haven't started the bird at all. It's huge. You can't really tell from the strawberry because you kind of think it's strawberry. It's not that big. The bird is like, I don't know, probably 2,000 stitches or something like that. So that will take me a little while. In terms of threads, I had almost all the threads that it called for in stash. Here they are. Very messy, but it's just like a traditional fall palette. And the one that I added was, again, Gentle Arts Cinnamon, which I believe the pattern might have called for that roasted fig again, and I think I found that to be a good dupe in the salt boxes, so I used it here as well. Okay. So that is my first start. My second start is in my new Starry Owl Stitchery bag, and I don't have a great cover photo of it because I purchased the PDF, but it is this Dark Golden Delicious by the Artsy Housewife. I've seen a number of people now have started Golden Delicious, so Ellen Reed has a good chunk done, Shiloh X Stitch MD has a good chunk done. I feel like there's a couple others that are working on it, and I started the dark version, which I know Hannah from Microbiologist makes started, and Bridgen Museum Stitcher may have started. I'm not sure, Bridgen, you tell me. But I am stitching this on 40 count Flagstone, which it's by Seraphim. I was using this for the Moonlight Sampler by the Blue Flower, and it just didn't work for that piece. This is my sad start. So in my throes of Startapalooza, I just wanted to put a couple threads in everything, and this is all I got done. The outline of one little star and some extra and a hanging thread. Lovely. That being said, these are deceivingly big motifs. So I think it was probably at least 2 or 3 threads just to outline this. And I believe each of these motifs, once you fill it in, has something like 500 stitches. So they're definitely big. For the threads for this, this is part of my haul, I'm using a Roxy Flosco conversion. So Hannah X Stitch Treats on Instagram, who works for Caroline at Evertote, put together a conversion for this. This is, if you are buying Dark Golden Delicious, the conversion on Evertote for the Roxy Flosco is the same for Dark Golden Delicious, but you just need 2 extra colors. You need Bellini, which is like a light pink, and Teal of Fortune. So all of the colors in the Golden Delicious conversion you buy, and then you need Bellini and Teal of Fortune. If you are interested in doing that and you have a question about it, feel free to ask me. So that is my second start. My third start, so this is what I'm working on right now. This is my last Seasons of the Heart from With Thy Needle and Thread. I'm doing autumn right now. So I just showed you winter, which is finished. I have finished spring and summer. So down to autumn. And I am stitching this on a leftover piece of 40 count Pampas Grass from Color and Cotton, which is what I stitched Plum Street Samplers my early days on. I'm just gonna put my pattern behind this because I didn't grab my board. This is where I'm at. And I'm using threads from Stash for this. So it calls for a combination of Weeks Dye Works, Classic Color Works, DMC. I had maybe half, maybe a little bit more. And then for anything I didn't have, I went through and just looked at colors that would be similar and came up with my own conversion, which is here. Super fall, super pretty. What I have left is the remaining bottom border up onto the right side and mostly filling in that house. That's going to be Classic Color Works Hazelnut. I love the little owl on the moon. He looks a little creepy right now because he doesn't have eyes. He's just an owl with an empty face. But this one's been fun. I wasn't stitching that much this week because of knitting that you'll see later if you watch the knitting section. But this was the first thing I picked back up since after I wasn't stitching for a few days. And I imagine I'll finish this hopefully this weekend. I would love to have it sewn and finished before I put away my fall decorations. Seems feasible. I'm doing things recently. So that is my third start. And then my final start, very exciting, was my birthday start. I started this with Erin Makes on Instagram, my friend Erin, and we decided to start Autumn at Hawk Run Hollow for my birthday. So I had the chart in the last video, but I don't think I had any of the supplies for it. So the first thing is that I got a new project bag. This is from Stitchy Notions by Lisa, who makes many, many of my project bags. I love them. And it's just covered in gourds. And then the inside is this yellow, just like a checked fabric. Super pretty. And for Autumn at Hawk Run Hollow, I did decide to get the Vicky Clayton silks. They're beautiful. It seems like a low number of silks because I've only floss dropped the first section. So every piece of the chart tells you which chunk of flosses you need for that chart, which is really helpful because there are 62 flosses. So these are the ones I needed for the header section. And this is what I've done so far. I'm stitching this on 40 count Cedar River linen tephra. Let me tighten that a little more so you can see it better. And here's where I'm at. So as you can see, I started with the header. My border for this section did meet the first go, so that felt good. And the first thing I did was I think I outlined a pumpkin and then I added the bird, the first corn. It's really hard to tell from this distance and in this lighting. This corn, if you are stitching Autumn at Hawk Run Hollow, you know, this corn has like 8 colors in it, which gives a very pretty effect, but it took me longer than I'd like to admit to stitch that one little ear of corn. The silks are beautiful here so far. I want to get back to this. I think I worked on it for about 2 days, give or take, and then set it aside when I started my knitting project. So once I finish up with Seasons of the Heart Autumn, I think this will be what I go back to before I fully transition over to more holiday stitching, or maybe at some point going back to one of my original whips. We'll see. That's everything I started, I think. I went through my bin. That's all I could find. And I did want to talk about Stitchy Kindness and some things I purchased. And then I have a little flip through of Christmas charts that I'm thinking about starting. Not all of them, just some combination of them. But for Stitchy Kindness, Erin, who I mentioned before is doing Autumn at Hawk Run Hollow with me, sent me for my birthday this beautifully made patchwork bag that she made. I should have said that. And I love it. And inside it has a chart, which is, what is it called? Old Mustard Moon from Not Forgotten Farm. And I love this so much. It's so funky with the little barn and moon. Love those clouds. And she added all of the floss as well. So thank you, Erin. It is such a good birthday present. And I want to get started on this soon. So I already pulled out a fabric. I was thinking about doing it on murky, but I have a piece of 36 count murky and it is really dark. So I feel like some of the threads, like the darker threads, would get lost on it. So I have pulled out this, which is kind of hard to see. Sorry for the crinkles. It is Be Stitch Me Willow 40 count. It was a fabric of the month. It's a, I would say it's a sage green, like a mottled sage green. Super pretty. So I think that will be an upcoming start for sure, because apparently all I do now is start things. Haul. A lot of it has been worked into what I've showed you already. So got the floss for Dark Gold and Delicious from Evertote. I got the floss for Coffee and Eggs, which actually is also from the Artsy Housewife. I think I have it around here. Be right back. Okay, so I grabbed the chart. So this is Coffee and Eggs from the Artsy Housewife, another popular one that people have been starting. And a lot of the floss for it that I got from Roxy Floss Co. is part of Dark Gold and Delicious, so I don't have it on a separate ring to show you, but this is something on my mind for a future start. I also got a mini hank from Evertote for Roxy Floss Co. So this is my mini hank. It is beautiful. I believe it's called Dirty Martini or something like that. I think it's sold out now, so unfortunately you can't get one, but this is going to be for my start of Pandemic, Long Dog Samplers Pandemic at the end of the year. And I still need fabric for that. So that's something I have to think about. And the last thing I got here was another new project bag from Joanna 1966 on Etsy. She has great patchwork bags. I'm apparently addicted to patchwork bags. Here's the background fabric, and actually what's in here gets into my Christmas charts and planning, so let's just jump into that. What I have in here is, I already owned this, the Drawn Thread Welcome Christmas. I showed you in my last video Welcome Halloween and Welcome Autumn, which are both done. I had purchased this Welcome Christmas kit at the same time, just never worked on it. Or excuse me, I did work on it. I started it on a piece of fabric that wasn't the kit fabric, and I don't like it, so I'm not going to continue with it. It comes with all of the silks in this little kit, and then there's lots of beads on this one for like on the Christmas tree, which I think will be really fun. So that is the beginning of my Christmas plans. I also will probably work on Deck the Coop by Stacey Nash, and I didn't grab that for today, but that's fine. I'll show it in the next video if I work on it. Another thing is that I purchased the Modern Folk Embroidery Advent Holiday Countdown, I think is what it's called. So that's in a box over here underneath a chair or in the closet, hidden away so that I don't open it until December 1st. And I've been tossing around the idea of buying a knitting advent. I haven't actually pressed order on that shopping cart, but we'll see. So that is something on my mind as well. And then let me get into this pile of charts I have sitting over here and we'll talk about those. Okay, so I have a large pile in my lap. The first couple are not Christmas stitching, just things that I pulled out because I might want to work on them. So I was thinking about the fact that it's November, so it's Black Sampler November, and I have this Birds of a Feather chart, which is called, as you might expect, an alphabet sampler. I don't know, I want to say this is out of print, I'm not 100% sure. It might be one of those Birds of a Feather ones that you can get fairly easily on Etsy. I bought it a while ago, so I'm not really sure, but it seems like it would stitch up pretty quickly. It's only like 116 by 150 and mostly these letters. So this might be something I do in November for Black Sampler November with some of my stash threads. Then coming up in November is Cross Stitch Kate's birthday, and it's not a firm plan yet, but Kate, you tell me if it's firm for you. We are thinking about starting Teresa Kogut's Come to the Garden. I have had this for probably close to a year, and when she said she might start it, I said maybe I should start it too. It's not doing me any good sitting in my closet. And when I was looking at the thread list, I actually have, I think, almost all of the threads, and also I love that this is in like the book form. So this is a possible start in November. It's huge. What's new? Those are and then Coffee and Eggs. Those by the Artsy Housewife. Those are my like non-Christmas charts I wanted to share with you. Christmas charts. So the first one is this Hands to Work, Share Joy. This originally came in the Kitten Stitcher Holiday Advent 2021. I'm assuming it's been available for some time now, but there you go. Thinking about that. We have the 2021 Prairie Schooler Santa. I have never done a Prairie Schooler Santa, so that's something I might want to try out this year. This one is pretty dense. I mean, I guess all the Santas are probably pretty dense, but there's very little open area on this. I would think about how big or small I might want to stitch this, depending on what I want to do with it and if I stitch more. A relatively new purchase is Cottage Garden Samplings Peace on Earth sampler. Even though this one is like pretty Christmassy, I feel like I would actually consider working on it into January, so maybe I'd start this one a little bit later in December. Then we get into a few charts that are in magazines or books. So the first one is this Hello from Liz Matthews smallish chart. It's, how big is it? I don't know exactly. It's not that big. This was in the 2022 winter edition of Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher. So it's from like this time last year. I haven't really seen anyone do this chart. I'm certain that people have. I just haven't seen it myself. And it only calls for 5 colors that I have all of them. So I feel like that would stitch up pretty quickly. This kind of reminds me of her Halloween pattern Boo that she released recently, like the same sort of shape and size. I really like that. The next one is, okay, this is from a book. This is from A Cross Stitch Christmas, Handmade Memories. I don't know. It's quite old. I don't even know what year it is, but I saw this on, hold please, I have a pile that is falling all over the place. I saw this on Helen D, her channel, East Coast Crafter, and the specific reason I bought the book was so that I could do this chart by Rosewood Manor. I've been calling it Woodland Christmas. That is not what it's called. It's called Evergreen Sampler. My understanding is that you can only get it in this book. So if you are wanting to stitch this, you need to look for A Cross Stitch Christmas, Handmade Memories of an Unknown Year, 2013. 2013. I found this on eBay for like $15, so I'm imagining it's not that hard to find, but that was a year and a half ago. Then I have a few more charts that are winter, not necessarily Christmas. So I've been loving stitching birds recently. I have the Blue Flower Winter Quail. It's hard to see in this bag, so I'm going to pull it out. But the quail is wearing, hold please. The quail is wearing a scarf made out of, I think, a Silken Colors silk. You kind of weave back and forth. I think that's so fun. And it kind of reminds me of Magpie and the Moon, but for winter. Love that. Then I have Liz Matthews Winter Garden. So she came out with this in, again, the Kitten Stitcher Advent, I think. I thought about stitching it last year. I just never got around to it. And I'm honestly tempted to buy the Gloriana because there's a couple colors in this that are so variegated. It feels like the DMC might not be, it would be beautiful, but I feel like the effect that I want, I would only get with the Gloriana. We'll see, we'll see. And then the last one, which I alluded to earlier, is Blue Flower Seasons of the Heart. This is winter, and this was in the Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher winter issue for 2021. I think all 4 seasons were in 2021 leading into 2022 for her. So if you have a subscription to Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher, you should be able to have access to all 4 of these. And it's super pretty. I love the quail on there again, the little fox. So that was a lot of charts. There's only 7 to 8 more weeks left in the year, so certainly I'm not going to get to everything. And I also ordered one other thing, which is the new Plum Street Sampler exclusive from Country Sampler. It's a mouthful. I believe it's called Winter Moon. I'll put a picture here. It's currently, like I said, only available on the Country Sampler website. As of this filming, I have not checked. I do not to see whether it's sold out, so I do not know. I ordered the 40 count fabric kit, and I believe those are shipping around the winter solstice. So I'll probably have it a little before Christmas if it ships on time. We'll see. And then I think in my next video, maybe I'll film end of November or first week of December. I'll talk about my plans for 2024. The loose takeaway is that I am starting anything and everything I want right now. Going into next year, I'm not going to say that I'm doing no new starts because that won't happen. But I am going to try to get back to a lot of my whips that I miss working on, like Summer Quaker, At Home, Marianne Kopp. I have so many good things in my bin that I need to get back to. Also, Leela Studio recently released another sneak preview on her Instagram of Autumn Quaker, which I believe is going to be released at Market. So I definitely need to get in some stitches on Summer Quaker before Autumn Quaker comes out. And I think that's everything I have for stitching. So if you were only here for the stitching, thank you for joining me. I hope you saw some things you liked. Actually, if you want to tell me, I would be very curious to know, what are your favorite Christmas or holiday winter patterns? If you feel like dropping one in the comments, I'd love to see it. As someone who hasn't stitched a lot of holiday/Christmas, what I just showed you is most of what I have for the season. I have some more things in the closet, but would love to know what your favorites are because I am always looking to add to my list. And if you're continuing on with me, I will be back in a snap with my knitting. Okay, for everyone who is still here, it is knitting time. Unsurprisingly, this bag is back. I did work on my half and half wrap quite a bit. So as a reminder, this is the Purl Soho half and half triangles wrap. I've been recycling this photo in many a video. It will be in many more because this is taking me forever. I am knitting this with Stress Knits yarn. This half is Copper Boom, which is on her, it's called her Favorite base. And this is where I'm at. So I've actually done kind of a lot since the last video, which was a few weeks ago. So you can see on this side my orange progress marker. Everything above that I have done since the last video, and it almost looks like I've like not quite doubled the amount, but I've done a significant amount. I also switched this project onto ChowGoo red lace needles because I'm just really enjoying the cord on these needles and also the metal needle. It's helping me knit a lot faster than I was before, and maybe eventually I'll finish the first half of this. I'm actually closing in on finishing the first half of this. I think I'm at row 100, or I have about 100 rows left, but every time you knit a row on this one, you go down a stitch. So my next row will have 99 and 98, so on and so forth. And it gets a little bit faster, obviously, as you go. So I don't think I have a ton new to say about this one because I've talked about it so many times. In my last video, I talked about the fact that I had bought yarn to participate in the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along for 2023 with Liz from Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch and Shiloh from X Stitch MD. Ultimately, all three of us decided not to continue with the knit along, and looking at the finished product now, it is a very pretty shawl, but I do think it was the right decision for me to knit something else. So Liz had sent us a few ideas of shawls that needed 4 colors of sock yarn or fingering weight yarn, and we all agreed that our favorite one is here. It's called the Snarkometer shawl by Casapinka, and this was a knit along in maybe 2021. I'm honestly not sure, but now the full pattern has been released. So as a reminder, my yarn I'm using is all Sweet Georgia. I have these 4 colors: an ivory, a lavender, a pale teal, and a dark green. I think they work really well together. I am also using Chowgu red lace needles for this, and I have knit a lot. I started this on Sunday today, so it's only been 4 or 5 days maybe since I started this, and every section is different and so fun. So the bottom section, we have this like waffle-esque ribbing, and then there were this row of stitches. It's called, she calls it a gobshite stitch. I keep thinking of it as a gobstopper. Essentially you are knitting and purling full rows, and then when you get to each of these gobshite stitches, you in one stitch knit 2 together, hold it on your needle, purl 2 together, hold it on your needle, knit 2 together, and then slide it off, and then lift a stitch over. So it creates these little almost bubble stitches. The next section after that, section 3, which is this wavy section, has a lot of center double decreases and make one left, make one right, so that you create this wavy effect. The next section after that here is mosaic knitting, lots of slipped stitches, but when you normally might slip one purlwise with yarn in the back so that the slip isn't showing, or the carried thread isn't showing in the front of your work, in this shawl you do that intentionally, so you get these little carried threads. It looks so pretty. And then the section that I just finished is pretty big. This section has just lots of rows of straight knitting, straight purling, and then these center sections are slips. So having a ton of fun with this. I love my colors, and I'm moving into section 6 tonight. So, and then section 7 is actually lace, which I've never done before. So I'll get my stitch markers out for that. Having a lot of fun with that. And I do have a little bit of knitting haul as well, which is that, so 2 weeks ago-ish, my husband and I went to Portland. We were not working that week, and we decided to go to Portland, Maine for a night. And we walked around and ate and did all that good stuff. We also went to a couple yarn shops, and I purchased for myself 2 skeins of sock yarn from On the Round is the company. And this is a Nimble sock, superwash merino and nylon, so it's 85/15 fingering weight. This one is like a dirty gray with a little bit of a purple tone. It's called Beauchamp. And this one is like a speckled white with blue and some yellow speckles. And this is called Set in Stone. So that is my knitting. I'm still getting used to how to talk about knitting and kind of what to touch on, but I think that's everything I have for that for today. I guess I could share one podcast recommendation with you. I haven't done those in a while. I still haven't really been reading I've listened to a couple audiobooks, but I won't do a whole section on that here. The podcast I'll recommend, I posted this on my Instagram. It's called Ghost Story, and it is so enjoyable to listen to. I think there's 4 episodes out now. You can listen to it on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. But essentially, this podcast host grew up in a house that was haunted. Later in life, he met and married his wife and found out that her great-grandparents had lived next door to his childhood home, and that the great-grandmother had been murdered in that home that was next door to his home that's haunted. So he sets out to explore both the haunting and the potential murder that happened in the early 1900s to figure out if and how they're connected. And this is true life. This is not like a fictional podcast. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, I definitely recommend it. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I usually download them all and save them for dog walks. I typically walk my dog like an hour every day at lunch or at the end of the workday. And I like to save my podcasts for that so that I feel like I have something good to listen to while we're walking. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting a lot of foliage photos and photos of my dog playing in the leaves. So thank you for bearing with me through all of my self-indulgent New England foliage photos. And yeah, it's been great visiting with you today. I hope to be back in another 3 weeks and at the end of the month-ish. And then maybe get back on more of like an end of the month monthly schedule, but we shall see. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them in the comments, and yeah, talk to you later. Bye everyone.